Hello everybody, my name is Bobbie Richardson. Today I want to just discuss a little bit about some questions that have been coming up about how I channel and if I'm channeling and if it's just a conversation that I'm having with people. So I want to explain to you the process that I went through to get to where I am now and where I know I am heading. And I feel this is relevant for the whole of humanity in the evolution of where we're going, moving towards universal language, which I would call telepathy, channeling, whatever you want to call it. And that's because it's no longer with the babble that comes out of our mouth. It's with mind to mind, understanding feelings, moving through life through feelings. And a lot of animals do this anyway. So what happened with me was, as I was growing up, I would get woken up and actually see things visually. And to me, they were real. Sometimes they would disappear and reappear. Sometimes they would literally feel solid and be there. It just depended what the message was and who was bringing it to me. Sometimes I was afraid. Sometimes I wasn't afraid. Some things that I should have been afraid of, I wasn't afraid of. Like, for instance, before I went to Fiji, I woke up and saw a severed Fijian's head on my pillow, and I just didn't get a bad feeling from it whatsoever. So I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, whatever, another vision. Okay, hi. And then I just rolled over and went to sleep. And to me, this is real. This is not in my head or not like fleeting. It was a real severed head sitting on my bed. Now, then I go to Fiji. We had no plans, touristry plans or anything like that. We were just going to go to the lodge. I had a little 2-year-old with me, and I was pregnant, 6 months pregnant as well, with my third child. So we just planned to enjoy the moment to moment as we went along. We didn't plan anything. And we ended up on this road, and then this man comes along and he's like, a Fijian guy, would you like me to taxi you around? And he showed us a waterfall. And then he said, I know where I can take you, where there's another team that's going into caves and stuff. Would you like to do that? And we're like, yeah, sure, why not? So he took us to this tour guide that was taking these people through caves, and we were just kind of tagging along. We were allowed to tag along. And we ended up going into this cave, and this tour guide started speaking up about that there was this rock that was just placed in the middle, and it was like a slab. And he said, this is where they used to sacrifice people by chopping off their heads. And I'm just like, okay, now I put 2 and 2 together as to why I was visited by, as soon as I got the plane ticket, visited before I went to Fiji by the severed head. That sort of thing would happen to me constantly. So I had a lot of visions, and I had my daughter that was before she was even born. I saw her twice. I had little UFOs. I had elementals coming and visiting me. I had a matrix patterns. I had information given to me about people that had passed over. And until I decided I was going to bring all of that information and just take the reins, and I decided I was going to find the true potential of humanity. So I led myself through that story by focusing in on that rather than focusing in on those that had passed and that sort of thing. I decided I didn't want to do that. So it was all to do with the potential of humanity. And that's because they had already previously given me a dream of what the potential was. And I literally woke up in our future Earth, or our potential Earth. And in that potential, the first thing I noticed, even though everything was brighter and beautiful, the first thing I noticed, my mind, my monkey mind was completely still. I was so living in the moment. It was just pure bliss. And with that came the ability to be telepathic and to be able to be telekinetic or materialize things in real time from your own consciousness into your reality and so forth. Or we could like do the hands-on work if we wanted to. It just depended on what you felt like. So, and then to come back, the interesting thing was to come back from that dream. I ended up being sucked into this tree. I didn't know anything about the Taurus energy or source energy or anything in those days, but it was interesting. That's literally what I got sucked back into, this tree that had its leaves all the way down to the ground. So it was like that Taurus energy, and I was sucked back into myself. So then I ended up progressing from there and getting a lot of information about our potential and so forth. And I ended up meeting a Cherokee elder who actually held my hand and talked to me telepathically, which inspired me even more. Then I ended up getting information about the pineal gland and the somatics, and that we have tiny little crystals within our pineal gland. And those crystals can be in harmonic resonance with vibrational meet of either our intention or an actual physical sound, and that will resonate those little crystals into a mandala shape, a sacred geometry, if you might say, a code that is linked to a certain vibrational field of another experience that we can then move into. And we can do that through a balanced mind only. So we aren't allowed to be fighting within our logical mind, thinking it knows all the data, or our intuitive mind being all airy-fairy. We need to be working together with both to be able to ground the energy back into this world through using these codes. And we release serotonin and melatonin equally to yield into this DMT substance within our pineal gland, and that will change these little crystals from what is called an anion experience, from material to light. I think it's fermon to boson, or boson to fermon. I'm not a scientist, but I read that because I got led to that reading. In any case, it flips it from material to light, and then you can end up having these experiences with these other benevolent beings that are residing in this higher frequency of wisdom and different perspectives of life. So they gave me all of this information about our potential, and I just kept seeing things, and they were showing me things, and I was getting awoken by Pleiadians all of a sudden come into my reality. And they would start chanting things through me, and I would wake up and my literal skin was vibrating through these awakenings. I have so many stories of being awoken, and I got visited also by many beings who were telling me their true history, because that was another question I asked about humanity's history, because I didn't feel that was right either. I felt something was wrong with it, but I decided if what the schools were teaching us, I emptied my cup completely. If what the schools were teaching us was correct, then so be it. If it's boring, so be it. If it's crazy, so be it. If it's just a simple story, it didn't matter. I emptied my cup first. And if you ever want to know the truth, you have to empty your cup first. That means no mind coming into play, just allowance of what the story and where the synchronicities are taking you. And you go through with your feelings on moving through the answers. So in other words, I felt like one morning waking up and going on to my Facebook, and boom, there goes some more information. And I just kept doing that until I pieced all the pieces of puzzles together. And so I kept on evolving like that with all these visions. And in the meantime, I was going through a lot of breaking down of my reality. My two girls' father, breaking that down, it smashed away, and so we didn't have that anymore. So I had to deal with a lot of life issues as well, because it was almost like I was just constantly breaking down my own stuff. And previously, I have to go back a little bit. Previously, before that, I was shown our potential when I found a gold bracelet at a beach by spirit guiding me to dig it up in the sand. And then they taught me for 2 years how to at least control my mind enough to be able to get these messages to come through. So it was a real process, let's put it that way. Then, and I didn't realize it, but even when I was 2, I got channeled messages, and then I tried to tell my parents, but they didn't want anything to do with it. When I was like, I didn't get any more visions. When I was about 5 or 6 or 7 or something, I ended up having a vision, and my mum didn't like it because she got visions as well. She actually saw things too that she didn't like it, so she shut it down in me until I left home. But when I was 11, I was contacted by the Pleiadians, and they came in their ship and actually walked into my room, but they pretended to be my father. There's a whole other story that went on there with that. I ended up being found on the roof of the house with my hands in the air. I don't even know how I did that, because it was like a roof that was really steep. There's all these stories that had happened. And I just kept on following the breadcrumbs, so to speak, of my own feelings and intuition and where I had to go. I ended up in Uluru with David Icke. I ended up connecting with the mountain there when I moved over to Australia. Even moving to Australia was a huge deal to me, because I'd had these dreams and this insight that I had to come here, but I had no money. And I had to leave my daughter because she had a court order to be held in Christchurch. So I had to leave her with my dad, her dad, not my dad. And we were fighting in court. So I had to let go of everything to leave her. But I only really left her because I'd had a dream that I saw her at high school and that she was going to be living with me, so I could take that leap of faith to come to Australia, and so forth and so forth. Just so many synchronicities and crazy stories and life stories that I've had. Then, after all of that, at the age of 50, I started going through menopause, like everyone does around that time. And at the beginning of my visions, I did have visions up to this, but not as many. And when they really come thick and fast, they showed me this big cross coming down at me. And then at the end, I still have the odd vision, but not very much anymore. I had a big cross coming down at me. So I knew it was the end of some sort of spiritual phase that I had gone through. All these other stories are coming up in my head of that phase, but I'll leave that for another video. And anyways, in the end, after that, instead of getting visions, I would wake up early in the morning and I would get this download of information, and I'd be like, whoa, that's profound. I think I should do something. So I wrote it down, and then I started writing them down, and then I'm like, why don't I just put a video to it? So I started putting videos to them, and that became codes to a new reality. So over the next 2 years, I started being woken up by a very profound message, did the whole video, took 2 weeks in those days to do a video, put a video together, because I was still working it all out and using new programs and stuff. And then by the end of the video, I would be woken up like 2 weeks later with another profound message, and then I would do the same. And I just kept doing this for 2 years. So Spirit was working through me instead of through these visions, working through me, giving me this information. Then I had this really incredible experience of meeting Oneness, which I had asked 2 years previously to meet Oneness. And then they came, and I ended up having this experience where I actually became one with all. And I felt that feeling of having to let go of everything all the identities I thought were mine, and see where I wasn't supporting myself. Everything that I was grasping outside of myself to ask for somebody else to fill that gap, I had to fill it myself. And then I ended up becoming whole within myself. And then that wholeness allowed me to become one with everything. And the experience was incredible, where I suddenly realized I was creator of my reality and everything in it. And I allowed for other people's creations to come and go and fill my own lack or own gaps within myself, or even own, what do you call it? Like when you feel really good about yourself, like someone will come in and reflect that. So it was all to do with how I felt about me as to who I was bringing in. And the reason why I'm saying all of this is because the journey that I went on to get to this point. So I started realizing I was channeling messages. In other words, messages were coming to me not from books, not from videos. They were just these profound messages of understandings. So I started Codes to a New Reality. Then the relationship I was in completely broke away. And I ended up taking all my power back. And then I was getting a lot more messages coming through. Then I got this message to say that I was working with the CYANIANS, who are oneness, and they recognized, and they actually sent a message to me years ago that I'd written down after this poem I wrote, saying, "Greetings, I recognize we are all one, namaskar." And so namaskar meant that. That's what namaskar meant. And then I had another dream that told me that I would be working by the elder that I was working with, that the real elder that was from Ohio, Grandmother Parisha, and she's the one that talked to me for real, telepathically, holding my hand, linking. And I can see the same as her holding my hand telepathically, linking. It's very similar to these conversations. I just put myself in no man's land where I let go of my thoughts and allow these beautiful, profound messages to come through. So you could call it telepathy. Science would call it telepathy, or you could call it channeling. It doesn't matter. It's just a conversation that you're having with higher benevolence. But now recently, because of the whole bringing in the CYANIANS, who, greetings, we recognize we are all one, it's like it's merging, and it always was kind of merging, where messages from Acrturians or Pleiadians or CYANIANS or whatever, they're kind of merging into this oneness of it being all me. And we are all going, humanity is all going to this point of absolute, where we start to realize we are converging in on oneness. And even science, as it goes small, as it finds atoms and particles and it goes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, it starts to get to this point of unified field of existence. So even science and the quantum science or quantum physics are starting to realize, or know now, that there is this quantum field of oneness where nothing exists and everything exists at the same time. And when humanity gets to this point of nothing exists and everything exists at the same time, meaning they don't have their logical mind telling them stories anymore, and they let their imagination just shush and just come into nothing, then we can say what we desire in our life, and it will manifest very, very, very quickly. And it's like our oneness matches the vibration of the material world, because we recognize that the material world is no longer on a slower vibration, that we are an energetic match with the material world. We're not fighting against it. We don't see our reality as against us anymore. We see our reality as working with us. So there's this convergence of acceptance, and everything is going to come down to acceptance in every moment of your life. When you do that and you live in the moment, you're no longer holding on to all of these stories of that happened in the past. Is that going to happen again? It all just starts to be, that happened, boom, I'm not there now, I'm here, I'm in a different point, and you keep doing this. And then with that understanding of living in the moment, you start to get these profound messages of where your soul has been. So my soul was straight up from higher benevolence. I might have had one life in between as a monk or something like that, but it was pretty close to straight up benevolence, and then maybe one life or something like that, and then straight into this body. Very, very close connection to higher oneness and understanding. So when I tap into my soul and its story, I get all this information poured through from the perspective of oneness. And that's why I've had all this experience that I've had, because I was always trying to reach back to that oneness, that unified field of existence within myself that is everything, and I am nothing and I am everything at the same time. I am literally through that nothingness, creating myself as this in this moment right here, right now. This is me right now. And I keep doing that, and I hold it in my logical mind so that I don't disappear in the next moment when my imagination takes over and I become something else. I hold it there as an absolute so that I can have a linear story, that in a linear adventure. So that's how we can create this reality, but we can also use it to change our reality. If we fixate on things that we've lost, things that have disappeared, when nothing has really disappeared, it's just moved into another place. Even if it died, it's just moved into another field of existence, another perspective that's outside of our vision. When we come into unified field, though, we would start to be able to converse and talk to those that are so-called past. They're no longer in body, but they are still in spirit. They are still in understanding of themselves, of that energy, that source energy, that line or that fragment of oneness, the unified field. And they have an understanding of their own journey, because in the end, it's just like a massive, huge web of connections that source energy is residing through us. So really what I'm doing when I'm talking, I have these feelings coming through, and it's like CYANIAN, Acrturian, Pleiadians, that energy that I'm really used to is like converging into one, and it becomes myself. So when I talk or I channel or I am telepathically in conversation with my soul, with their soul, with this higher understanding, it's like I am now just one. And so I speak like that. And so I just speak as this, and I just let it fall through me and come out my mouth. And that's how this works for me. So other people outside might see it as that I'm just having this profound conversation and having this wisdom that I already knew about logically. I did not know about most of the stuff that comes through my mouth logically. I'm literally watching my own channelings and learning from them as well. Like my logical brain is learning from them. So it is a understanding that we are more than. And every single human, I believe, is going to end up doing this. We're not going to, in the future, be people who go into a chant and and then I have this wisdom. We are just going to be walking wisdom. We're just going to be in higher frequencies. This is what I'm like when I am a benevolent person in Pleiades. I walk around in Pleiades and I am this. I speak my truth. I am connected to my soul. I have wisdom pouring through me. I am this. And so it is me. And yet I also can feel the energy of other people's wisdom that I want to connect to, because I'm in that higher frequency. And so I don't want to, if it's their energy and what they want to say, I like to be able to, and I suppose my logical mind likes to be able to say it's them as well, because I like to acknowledge that. I like to honor that. I like to respect that. So I do say at the beginning of my videos that I channel through the people that I know I've been that I am in contact with on a soul level that are matching my vibration. And then I just be me and allow the wisdom to pour through me. And that's how I do it. So I hope this helps in clarifying what channeling is. I'm not a medium. I don't have somebody coming in and becoming me. I am me. I know who I am. And I just allow the wisdom to pour through me. And that does come from these higher benevolent beings. But at the same time, I recognize that they recognize that we are all one. So in the end, it is just me.